Yes. So now we are going to discussing about web services. So in previous classes we discussed XML, SOAP and WSDL. Okay. So now we are going to discussing on SOAP web services. How many ways we can develop the web services, SOAP web services. Okay. So there are two ways we can develop the SOAP web services. One is service first web services, contract first web services. Let's say there is a client and so he wants to access web services and if it is a contract first web services, then he will use, then we have to develop the web services, that is contract first web services, contract first. Here in this scenario we have a WSDL file. So based on that WSDL file we develop the web services. In the second scenario, client he want to access some services. Okay, so these are web services and this is web services. Okay, in this scenario we are going to developing web services by service first web service. So in order to develop service first web services, we need service first web services, we need service that is called interface. Here we call WSDL. So in contract first web services development model, we use WSDL, and based on the WSDL we generate the corresponding service implementation. In the service first, initially we don't have any WSDL. First we define one interface. So in that interface we define list of required. So those services we will implement in implementation class, in web service implementation. So on top of that, so the framework will generate the WSDL file. So that WSDL we will give it to client. In the first scenario, so we already have WSDL, so client he can access directly WSDL file. But in second scenario we don't have a WSDL. Okay, but the client needs a WSDL because this is SOAP web services. When any client wants to access SOAP web services, he need a WSDL. Okay, in the first scenario we already have WSDL file, so client can access the WSDL file directly. But in second scenario we don't have WSDL file, we are developing web services based on the interface. So in this scenario, whatever the framework, JOX WS or Access, Apache CXF, whatever it is, so when we are developing the web service based on interface, again our web service will generate a WSDL on top of whatever the interfaces we have defined. So that WSDL we will provide it. Okay, so this is the two ways we can develop the web services. Now let's create web services in service first. So now we are going to developing web services using service first. So before going to developing web services, how we can develop web services? So in order to develop web services, there are many frameworks available in market, so we can use any one and we can implement the web service. The process is same. So suppose if I am going to using JAX WS, or I can go for Access, or I can go for Apache CXF, or there are many frameworks, there are many libraries available in market. We can use anyone. So the process is same. So application development for web services is process is same across all these libraries, but the way the back end how it works, that is the matter. Now, so in this tutorial we are going to discussing about developing web services using JAX WS. So this JAX WS library, that is by default coming with Java standard edition, so we no need to again download it from the net and no need to use it. So we already have the JAX WS specification in Java standard library, but we need JAX WS library that is for web service application. So that library we have to use it, that library we have to download it. So now if you see here, JAX WS RI 2.2.10.zip. So this is I downloaded from net. Okay, so this contain libraries in order to developing web services. So this using JAX WS, I am going to developing SOAP web services application using JAX WS RI 2.2.10.zip. Using this framework or using this library, I am going to developing SOAP web services. So I am extracting this. Okay. See, this is contain these many libraries. So these are all the jar files this JAX WS is supporting. So in order to develop the web services using JAX WS, we need this jar file. Now I am creating new web service application. So for that, in Eclipse I am creating new dynamic web project. So that name I am giving DURGASOFT services. So okay, let's remove it. I am removing it. I am going to creating again. File, new dynamic web project, DURGASOFT services. So in this DURGASOFT services, I am going to developing service first web service. So I am going to developing these web services. Service first web. I am going to developing service first web services, not WSDL first web services. In previous classes, we developed the WSDL. I will tell you how we can use that WSDL to create web services. And now I am going to discussing the service first web services. Here I am going to creating one interface, and I will use this interface to implement the web services, and from the web services I will generate the WSDL. That WSDL this client will use it. Using that WSDL this client can access these web services. That is the process I am going to doing. So I am going to creating service first web services. So for that I am creating one service interface. So first of all, I am creating one package com dot durgasoft dot service. So this is the package name I am giving. So in this, creating one class DURGASOFT service. So in this DURGASOFT service, I am creating public in WSDL. While creating a WSDL, whatever the services we have defined, same services I am going to using. So get course details. So this get course detail method, and it contain integer id. So this is one service and it returns course. So for this I am creating one model object. So I am creating one package, another package com dot durgasoft dot model. So sorry, it should be inside source. New package com dot durgasoft dot model. So this is another package. It contains the model class. That model class, the name is course. So course contain private int id, private string course name, private string category. So these three fields this course contain. I am generating setters and getter methods for my model. Okay, so this is my model. So once if client send id web service, if client send to get the course details by sending id, web service send the course details like for what is the name of that id and what is under which category that course exists. So that information that service is going to provide. Now okay, so sorry, this is my interface. So in in the service first web service application, we have to use interface. So this is my interface, and I am going to developing service get course detail, and second one is public get faculty detail. So faculty detail here integer id. So if I pass faculty id, I want to get his information. For this I am creating one more model, new class faculty. So this faculty class contain private string name, private int id, private string what is the course he can do. So course private string address. So these four information this faculty contains. So I am generating setters and getters for this model. Yes. So in web service, if pass the id, then he will get faculty information. Of particular faculty, based on particular faculty ID, he will get the faculty information. So that is one another service I am defined for DurgaSoft service. Next, public get fee detail. So this is another service. So here I will pass course name, string or course ID, integer ID. So I will pass integer ID as a course ID or integer course ID, and he will get the fee information. So that is integer type. So these three services I am going to developing using web services. Okay, so suppose why we are going to developing this web services. So, some people they want to develop, they are going to developing their site, and in that site they want to get DurgaSoft database. They want to access some DurgaSoft database. So for them, I am not going to providing my database information. I am not providing any connection properties to get my database information. For them, I am developing these web services. Remember. So this is my interface. So this is the specification I defined. So these are the services I am going to producing. So now I have plain Java interface. Now I make it as a service, that is we can develop. I have interface. So these three services I am going to providing. So I am configuring, I am using annotation that is called web service. So means this interface I am going to developing, this interface I am going to implementing. So this is my web service. This annotation will specify this interface, treat it as a web service. Next one, I have to implement these services. I have a specification, now I need to implement it. Otherwise, how I can develop my web services? Till now we defined specification. Now we are going to implementing actual implementation. So for this I have another class DurgaSoft service IMPL. So this is my actual implementation class. So for this I will implement DurgaSoft service, and in DurgaSoft service, so when I implement any interface, whatever the methods inside the interface I should implement here. So that is what I have to do. Now I am implementing these methods. Now this is my implementations. Okay, now I am going to developing these methods like, so if anybody send course ID, I don't have currently database to connect with the database, so but we are developing web services. So I am going to writing the logic like if somebody sent a course ID, I will give you some information. In the same way, if I send faculty ID, I will send some faculty information, and if I send some fee ID, course ID, I will send some amount information. So even if you send anything, I am passing only this information. So the reason is I am not going to implementing actual business logic here. So this is a web service, how we can make the request and how we can get the response. So that is in that perspective. First, for now I am going to providing some sample test data as a response. Now see what is the response. If somebody send a course ID, then I will send the response like course equal to new course dot set id some 10 or 100 course dot set course name some Java and course dot set category open source. So this is the information. This information I am going to writing. I am writing course. So this is how I am developing the get course details service. So if someone pass any course ID, I will return this information. So next one is get faculty details. So get faculty details also I am going to developing like creating faculty object, faculty dot set id some 200 or 2000 faculty dot set name faculty name some Durga and faculty dot set course is written some core Java and faculty dot set address he is in Hyderabad. So this is the information I will provide if you pass any faculty ID. So I will return faculty. So this is how I am returning faculty information. If you pass any faculty ID, I will send this information. Next one is course ID. So I will return course amount some 2000 or 4000. If you pass any course ID, I am going to returning this 4000. So this is how I implemented the web services. I defined the interface here. In the web service, I am going to implementing it. Actual implementation I will develop here. So interface I defined, and I am going to implementing this interface like this class. So DURGASOFT service IMPL, which implementing the service whatever I defined in whatever the interface I defined. Okay, so now how I can, so this is normal class. If you see here, DURGASOFT service IMPL, it is a normal class, it is not a service. Okay, so suppose I have a class like employee servlet. Okay, so if I make that employee servlet as a servlet, how I can make it? So if the name is employee servlet, is it mean that is a servlet? No. If we extend HTTP servlet, then we can say that okay, employee servlet is a servlet component. So that component we can configure in web.xml. Now we are developing web services, so it means we are developing web component. Okay, so how I can make my class as web component? If I implement DURGASOFT service, so is it mean so this implementation is web service component? No. So we have to annotate it, we have to externally specify that okay, so this class is act as a web service component. So that is how we have to configure it. Now let's see. @ web service. So this web service have these many parameters. So endpoint interface is, so what is the endpoint interface? com.durgasoft.service dot Durgasoft service, and name I am giving like Durga service, and port name or service name I am giving Durga services. Port name I am specifying like Durga training, DURGASOFT training. So this is how I configured my web services. Okay, so here, so whatever the WSDL, when we are working with WSDL, so I specified that endpoint, where endpoint means where we are going to deploying our service, and services. So service name means what is the service name, what is the name we are providing for our services. Okay, so that information I specified in the annotation itself. Okay, now in order to run this, so now my web services are ready. Okay, so these web services I develop using JAX-WS. I developed the interfaces using JAX-WS. I implemented the interface. I implement the interface using JAX-WS. Now see, we are giving request and we are getting the response. When we are working with this type of client server communication, we need a servlet help. Without servlet, we cannot develop any web service application or any web application also. Even enterprise application also, we need a servlet help. Okay, so now I need a servlet in order to process the request and response. So can we go for to create our own servlet? Yes, we can create it, but it is no need when we are using JAX-WS. So JAX-WS itself is providing servlets to use or to work with web services. So we can use that servlet and we can configure that servlet in our application. So for that, if you see here, if you notice here, I take the application as a web application. I created this as new dynamic web project. I am taking this application as a dynamic web project because my application is a web application. I mean, it is a web project, so I need to deploy on the server. If it is a standalone application, I can go for just project, but I am going to developing the web service application, and I need to deploy my services in server. Then only client can access those services. So that's why I am creating this that's why I am creating this dynamic web project. So now we need a servlet support. So JAX-WS is providing some servlets in order to work with web services. Already that servlets are available. Now I will use those services. So here one more thing we need is that JAX-WS library support in my application. I don't have any libraries till now. If you see here, build path, configure build path. See, I don't have any libraries. I have Apache Tomcat 6.0 runtime environment, and this is ER libraries, nothing is there, and Java runtime environment library and web app library, this is for web application. So that's it. I don't have JAX-WS specific libraries in order to work with JAX-WS web services. So I now see that servlets and whatever is required at runtime, those classes and all is available in JAX-WS library. So we need to use those library when we are going to developing web services. Okay, till now I created one dynamic web project I created. So in that I created one interface, and I created one class for implementation. That's it. So here I configured it for I configured the classes as a web service component. That's it. Now we are going to running my application on JAX-WS APIs. So that is how we have to work with. So now I am going to adding JAX-WS libraries. Now I am creating one user library. So this user library name I am giving as JAX-WS. So this JAX-WS contain so these are the jars we need in order to work with JAX-WS. So I added all this library as a in under one library. So I make it as one. So I'm using this JAX-WS library. Now I have JAX-WS library. Now I can work with JAX-WS services. Okay. Now I have JAX-WS library. Next thing is we need to configure servlet. So that servlet that is provided by JAX-WS. So we have to use that servlet. So how I can configure that servlet? In web.xml, servlet name, servlet class. So next one is servlet mapping. So servlet name and URL. So here this servlet will execute. I didn't configure. So now I am going to configuring the servlet which is provided by JAX-WS. So that URL pattern I am giving like /Durga services. If the URL pattern is /Durga services, that name servlet name I am giving Durga servlet, and same servlet name I am using here, and the class I am going to use that is provided by JAX-WS. Now now in my web.xml I need to configure the servlet which is provided by JAX-WS. So that class name is, this is the class name, com.sun.xml.ws.transport.htp.servlet ws servlet. So this is the servlet we need to configure for for request processing and for in client server communication. Okay, so if not only in web application, so even enterprise applications or web based application, so any application that is on web you have to use servlet. So even web services also it is web based application, so we should use servlet. So that servlet, whatever JAX WS provided, that servlet I am going to using. Suppose let's see if I am going to developing web services using Access. So in this scenario I will use the servlet which Access provided. In the same way, if I am going to developing web services using Apache CXF, then I will use the servlet which Apache CXF is provided. So that is how while you are working with any framework or you are working with any library, that specific library provided implementation classes or that specific library provided servlets we have to use for our application or for our service development. So now I am working with JAX WS, so I will use JAX WS provided servlet for as my servlet. So this is the servlet JAX WS provided. So that servlet I configured. One more configuration required here, that is listener. So this listener class, it will help so listener class. So this is my listener class. So this listener class is to when you while working with JAX WS, we need some setup before our application deploy on the server. So this listener will execute at the time of application loading on the server. So it will execute, it will provide the context for entire application. So for this we need this listener class. So the listener class I am providing, that listener class also provided by JAX WS. Okay. Now one more configuration we need, sun.jaxws.xml. So the naming convention should be like this. So sun.jaxws.xml. So that listener will look for this class file at the time of application loading on server. So for this this XML should be like this. So name I am giving Durga soft. So endpoint name Durga service. So same name I am specifying here, and implementation is so com.durgasoft.service. DurgaSoft service IMPL. So this is my service IMPL. Next URL pattern is so I am giving like this. Okay, so this is how I configure jaxws.xml file. Now I am going to running my application. I am going to running my I am going to I will deploy my web services, then I will run my application. Now let's see. So we develop the JAX-WS API. Using JAX-WS API, we develop the web services. In order to run the services, so we need the required libraries in runtime also. At development time, you use that libraries for development, but you have to use those libraries in runtime as well. So in order to provide runtime those services, there is a folder lib. So we have to place those jars in lib. So these jars I am providing the lib. Yes. Now I am going to running these services in server. So I am removing it. So I have to run these services in Tomcat 6. So that is how I configured. In Tomcat 7 also it will work, but I configured runtime in server runtime as Tomcat 6. That's why I configured Tomcat 6. So DURGASOFT services finish. Now I am starting server. I deployed the application. Now I am starting server. Let's see any errors or anything happened. We'll see here. Yes, server started. You see here server is started. Now we run our application. So localhost 8080 / Durga services. This is the context path we should use. / URL pattern I am giving like Durga services. Yes. So my application I deployed. So that is up running. This is the WSDL file. You can use this WSDL to access my services. That is it mean. So I generate the WSDL file. Now my services is up and running. If anybody want to access my services, they can use this web service, this WSDL. Okay. So now I am going to testing my services. So to test my services, I have a tool, SOAP UI tool. So using SOAP UI tool, we can test any web services. So in order to work with that SOAP UI tool, we need a WSDL. So this is my WSDL. So I am going to using this WSDL to access my services. As I told, so interface we created and we implementation also done using JAX-WS. So after I deployed these web services on Tomcat, so it will generate the WSDL file. So in order to access these web services by client, so that is what this WSDL is generated. Now I will use this WSDL to access my services. Now see, file, new SOAP project. Yes, so this is the service, and let's see get course detail. So get course details service, how it is working. Now if I send one, I will get the response open source Java and ID is 100. So this is how I am sending the response. In the same way, if I send faculty details, So faculty details, faculty ID I am sending as some 200. Yes. So name is Durga, ID is 2000, course is core Java, address is Hyderabad. So this is how my service get faculty detail service is sending response. In the same way, get fee details. So if I pass ID of my fee, I will get 4000. So this is how we can develop the web services, SOAP web services, using service first based web service application development using JAX WS. So this is a SOAP UI to test my services. Now as a client, this client, he may be Java, he may be this client application, maybe he is working on .NET, and this client maybe he is working on SAP, or this client maybe he is working with Java, or this guy may be developing with different technologies. So how these systems, these different types of system, .NET, Java, SAP and another systems, how this system can access this information. Through SOAP UI, I am able to access the services, so my services is working fine. So there is no doubt. But as a Java client, how access your services, how access services, as a .NET guy, how access these services, as a SAP guy, how access these services. So for them we are providing Wisdom, so they can develop their own client generation in their own specific technology. Okay, so now we are going to generating client for Java, because we are a Java developer, so we can know how we have to know how we can generate the Java client for web services. Now as of now we created web services. Now I am going to creating Java client for access those services. Let's see here, this is my DurgaSoft services. Now I am creating another project, that is standalone project. That name I am giving as suppose, so another client, another system, they are developing some Java project. We don't need what they are going to doing, that and all we don't need. So they want to access our service, and we provided the Wisdom, so from that Wisdom they can access our services. So now I am giving the name for that system. The name is some elite training system. So this elite training system, so they are developing, so there is a one system, elite training system. So this system, this application, they want to consume DurgaSoft services, they want to use these DurgaSoft services. Let's see how they can access these web services in their system. So now we need to, so this system is having only client Wisdom. So this elite training system, they are having only Wisdom file. So I am giving one source folder here. So resources. So inside the resources I am placing okay, so this Wisdom they will save. Okay, so yes, so they have this wisdom, that's it, they don't have anything. Now they want to create a client, Java client, to access those services. As a Java system, this allied trading system, they want to access DurgaSoft services. Now so let's see how I can create client for DurgaSoft services.